Yeah, one of the biggest mistakes is starting with a button. That is one of the surest way to ensure your design system will fail. Yeah, that is, and this is something I learned from one of my mentors in this space, Dan Moore. He's a well-known expert user in this field, right? If you start your design system with a button, there is a 90% chance that design system will fail. So and
Interesting.
that's the most common one. A lot of people think, oh, when they hear design system, oh, let's build the button.
Let's build a button.
Yeah. What you notice is once you start with that button, okay, fine, you've done the button. Then you do the primary button, you do the secondary button, you start with arrow buttons, then you start looking on click, on hover,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
focus, accessibility, responsiveness, and you've seen that you've spent 1 month building buttons.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Teapot, the Pulse of Tech podcast, where we have insightful conversations about building digital products, brands, and teams, as well as explore the challenges in the tech industry. Again, this is Lady Adeniyi, and I'm your host, and I'm super excited to have you here. Joining us today, we have the amazing Destiny Ihejirika, and we're going to be talking about why most design systems fail, the common mistakes we need to avoid that could be costly, and how we can fix them. To give some background into who Destiny is a product designer specializing in design systems, and he has 8 years of experience crafting digital experiences. He has worked in multinational corporations across the UK, US, Canada, and Nigeria, bridging design, technology, and business. With an engineering background in APIs and microservices, he collaborates effectively with engineers to build user-friendly products. Beyond design, is a content creator with over 100k subscribers across YouTube and Instagram, helping designers refine their skills and navigate the industry. He also writes More Than a Designer, a newsletter on career growth beyond UI. So, welcome to the show, Destiny.
Man, I was at some point I was wondering if that was me.
Like, is it me? Yeah, it's very impressive background. Yeah.
Thanks so much, man. Thanks for
Welcome,
having me.
welcome to Teapot. Glad to have you
Thanks for
here.
having me, man. I'm so honored to be on this show. I love everything this show has been doing and its contribution to the community. So I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you. I truly appreciate that. So let's go into your background a bit.
Okay.
Can you introduce yourself? Uh, di- differently from how I did it.
Okay.
Just go a little bit more personal. Share your
Mhm.
journey and how you got
Yeah.
to where you are now. How you became this amazing person.
Well, thanks. My journey per se has been a lot of experimental ups and downs, right? First, I have a BSc in information technology, then I also have a master's in computer science. Then I started off like my career generally like from college, like in school. I went to Belgium, for those that didn't know. So back in school, I was already like building applications and representing the schools in like external competitions, where we've won like different sort of terms, right? So I think that's where like the curiosity started for me, especially from that engineering side of things, building applications, doing competitions. And then after school, right, like I tried to understand a little bit more about like the computer space in general. So I went to further my education, having a master's in computer science. Then I'm spiraling into the workforce. I started off, the first job I got was for like a bank in Nigeria. It's one of the top 10 financial institutions in Nigeria. So then I was already like playing around with product design, because one of my major frustration was the design I was getting during my engineering career that I was building with, like I didn't really like them, right? So I was like, I wanted to build better ones. So I started diving into that whole design world. Then I discovered, the whole UX. Started learning off of YouTube and all. Then I got into this boot camp, the HNG one. I know right now, like HNG is way more popular now. I think I was in HNG 6 or so, right? So it was, yeah, it was extremely stressful, but it really like pushed a lot it pushed a lot. Then I made it to the finalist and all of that. So from there, I got a bank picked me up. Went for the bank and all of those things. I'll just summarize it all, right? Like I got to the bank and they tell me we need only one designer. There were two designers there. We need only one designer. One of you have to convert to being engineering. And I was like, all right, cool. Like I already have engineering background and I used to code in college. Naturally, I joined the engineering team. That's where I started building microservices and APIs. Spiraling into that, my love for design never changed. And when I got the chance to meet other designers in the bank, I just transitioned and my career continued, along that side till I relocated and worked for multinationals, built different fintech apps, websites, commerce, in the hospitality field also, and also like in event management. But my love for design system actually started way back while I was still like quite junior. Started nerding out about it, but I never really had like the opportunity to have that as a career because then in Nigeria, like per se, like the rules for design system are very limited, right? It's not something you get to see every day. Most companies have the budget and capacity for like a full designer to do everything, right?
Yeah.
So I was just lucky enough to be able to, find organizations that were specifically looking for people with those skills in the design system space, and it aligned with them. And that's I've been pushing it in design systems ever since then, trying to grow that community, especially for like Africans and all, to get into that space and just like teach as much as I can. So basically, that is my journey, and it's been a bumpy one. So let's see how it goes.
I can totally imagine, it's I wouldn't say it's a new field. It's just something that's very untapped, right? And
Yeah,
some it's like that thing where you need it, but not a lot of people are willing to put the time into actually making it work. So they do just enough to get by, but they don't realize the benefits that they can get if they really dedicate time to make sure it
time to it.
works, and then make sure it works through the full spectrum, like design and front end and mobile. People don't really think about that. A style guide is enough, and then they just push forward. I mean,
Those are some of the things that, like, along as we go along, like those are some of the major issues, and we'll flesh it out, in those aspects. But like, yeah, you're totally spot
yeah,
on.
yeah, definitely. Not a lot of people know this, but I'm also sort of obsessed with design systems as well. Like I'm always nerding out, reading new stuff, following all the trends. But yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Thanks.
Let's go into the topic of understanding design systems, right? So
Okay.
for listeners who may not be familiar, what exactly is a design system and why is it important for product teams?
Yeah. So there are many definitions, but like I'm not going to give a definition that like is you can just Google and find a definition online, but I'll give you from the understanding of the work I've been doing in it and like the teams I've worked with. Right. So at the bare minimum, a design system is like a set of reusable elements and components that help engineers and designers work a little bit more effectively. Right. It serves as like also like almost like a source of truth that keeps consistency from the design side and the engineering side. They appear in different ways. The most popular one people know is especially the one from the design side because that one it's easier to see and understand, but like it also translates to the engineering side, which actually is the most important part of the design
Exactly.
system.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't really understand that. So that is it in a nutshell. Then the importance is design system helps speed up your work. It helps you build consistency across lots of elements. And one of the most useful ones for me is it helps you maintain accessibility, right? If you build accessibility, like for example, into a card component, even if you have 6 million designers calling that card component and using it in code, you don't have to actually like go and check each of those elements.
Yeah.
as long as you're using this component, it is accessible, and that saves a ton of time, especially when it comes to reviewing MRs and engineering spikes and all of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a very good definition, and for people that don't really know, I guess you can, like you said, reusable set of elements, components, and to drill down into that, as simple as buttons, like you said, with the accessibility, you bake in the accessibility features and everything that you need to bake in. You build it once and then you don't really have to worry about it again. So just switch up the different variants for different use cases and you can just move like that. So you mentioned that you got interested in design systems ever since you were like a junior designer. What is that thing that sparked your interest? What is it about design system that made you think, you know what, I want to find out more about this. I want to nerd out and geek out on this. What
I
was
think
that thing?
like it was laziness, right? Like I
Yes. Yes.
I was I was upset like why I had to, you know, every time I needed a card, every time I needed a page, I had to start building it again.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just didn't make any sense to me. And I was just like, okay, there has to be like, a better way to do this, right? And then like especially when you're reviewing like, your designs and all, and you're like, oh, this button looks off. Like I don't really like having those kind of conversations because I feel like I'm trying to solve a problem. And if that user problem is solved, right, it goes just beyond how that button looks like at the initial scope of things. So we shouldn't be
Yeah.
spending tons of time diving into things that could have been handled,
Yeah.
ages ago. So that was it first. And the second part was like just for career advancement. Like, everyone say like they love to do things, but like at the end of the day, you're all doing things to secure a better future. And the design system is a space that requires specialization. And as you scale in your career, specializing makes you separate from the rest of the crowd. So like you want to be good at something, spend years mastering it and being so good at it that you're now an authority in that space. So those are like it was like kind of those combination that made me really nerd out into it, even though at that time where I was like it wasn't really something that is being discussed like around like a lot of places that I walked around that time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. The laziness thing, I wasn't thinking of that, but when you said it, it just clicked that yes, laziness is a very big motivating
Honest.
factor for me because why do I have to build this thing multiple times? And then when you're working in a
Over
team,
and over again.
yeah, when you're working in a team, you have multiple designers, you go to a Figma file, maybe it's being designed by multiple people. You go to one page, the header on that page is a different font size. The on another page it's another different font size, and even down to typography, right? You inspect the
Yeah.
text and the color of your text is different,
Different
and
shades of black.
different shades of black, and then the secondary text or the de-emphasized text or the subheading or the subtext or whatever, the colors are different.
Yeah.
Little things like that, like there's just so much, like the border radiuses, like in this one they're using 4 pixels, in another one they're using
Using
7,
6.
and they're using 6, and then they're also not using the 4 points grid or the 8 points grid.
Yeah.
Things like that, I don't want to have to be thinking about it. I just want to know that, oh, we
You want
get
to
to a
solve the
point
problem.
where, yeah,
Yeah.
we want to, yeah, as a designer, you want to get to that point where you don't want to think about the smaller stuff, the smaller
Yeah.
elements. You just want to solve the problem that you want to solve. You've already done all the hard work. You figured out your information architecture. You figured out your
Yeah.
user flows and everything. You just want to design. I don't want to now
Just
have to
want to get
start
it.
thinking which color should I use for this text, and then you're just there trying to
Yeah.
figure, does this look good? Does this look bad? And then you're thinking, and then you're there. Just do it, and it
Just
works,
yeah.
right? And then when you hand it
100%.
over to the engineers, it just works on their end as well. They don't have
Yeah.
to worry. And that
Yeah.
is the spice that people need to get to. But yeah, amazing stuff. So the next question that I want to ask, and I
Yeah.
think for designers and design teams, it's important to understand the usefulness of design systems,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very good to have them, like we've explained all these different advantages that it brings.
Yeah.
But in your personal opinion, when do you think it's necessary for a team to build a design system?
Now we're getting into more niche nitty gritty, right? And
Yeah.
you know, so first of all, there's a numerous way to do things. There are a lot of ways to do things, but specifically, it depends on first the size of the resources you have available to you, right? There are different stages in building a product, or let's say if you're a founder and you're creating a product, right? There are different stages, and if you don't prioritize properly, you see that like you're now spending 4 months building a design system to build an idea that you haven't even validated, that nobody will use at the end of the day. So it boils down to a lot of factors, but this is what I'll say. Right. First, if you're just having an idea that you want to push out, you're building a product. And I learned this the hard way when I was building the edutech I was working on. You're so obsessed about so many smaller things. But at that point, you don't really need a design system. You just need a POC to be able to get that idea out there, get people testing it. So I would advise you just, you can stick with your initial style guides you have, or if you best even use a template and just get things out there. If you're still at that initial conceptualization, you just want people to, you're not sure this would work, don't spend 4 months building your design system. When you finally started using it, even building at the engineering side of it will take you another like 2-3 months or so. So like you see you're spending like a year building efficiency, and your product goes out and people are like, we don't need this. Every founder has felt that burn before, but it is what it is. You pack up ship,
You
keep going.
failed, but you look good while you were failing.
I know, right?
Silver lining.
Oh man, it's all part of the game, right?
Yeah, it's it.
Let's say now for smaller companies that are a little bit more established and want to have a little bit more consistency, they might not have the financial budget and resources to have a dedicated team for design systems, right? So what I would advise is, if you're using some of the existing ones already, you can customize most of the elements to suit into your taste. Some of the good ones, Ant Design, Polaris, Base, some of the more open source ones, right? Like you can use them, customize them, or you can also like just buy some that are paid and use them. So starters for startups and all those things could also use that, right? Like right now, any new startup I'm going to work on, straight up gonna use Ant Design if it's web. When the idea is validated properly, we can go from there, right?
Yeah.
So that's one. That's the second part. Now, for mid-level organizations, I think this is something they should actually have in their roadmap and start, and not to look at it as a part-time project. You have to actually plan it out and constantly improve upon it. So I think more for teams that have more of that structure, they have a goal, they have their planning, they can now start mapping it out. Then if you're a large organization and you don't have dedicated teams for design systems, you're missing out a lot, because like you would see how much efficiency it's going to improve. You're going to struggle at first getting that system up in place, but it's going to be all worth it at the end. So those are like the tier level that I'll put, who should invest in building design system and all of that. Finally, I'll just say about this question. Building a design system is also at scale, right? You can have some of the system already into the design system. A lot of people think when you're mentioning a design system, it has to be, you have buttons, you have 600 shades of blue, 700 shades of red. Your typography is like 16 lines. Your design system should be tailored to your team. How many typography styles is your team actually using? There should only be 2 in your design system. How many buttons, how many colors is the team using? Some companies, the colors are just 4. right? You might have like two main primary and like two accents. Then you have your neutral gray, your shade.
Neutral colors, yeah.
You don't need to now pick out a blue and now have blue from 0, 50, 100 to like, you know, that's where the confusion is around designs, and that's why people get frustrated when they start, right? Which is, I'm sure when we get to
There's
that
just
question.
so much. There's just so much stuff. So for example, someone that's just starting out, maybe they are looking through a documentation for an established design system. It is so big, there is so much to read. Like there are motion specifications on how to do motion, tone of voice. The foundations are huge, and then there's like all these different design tokens, and you're thinking to yourself, what even is a design token? What are these variables? What is all these things? And then you're just like, what's what? I mean, most large design systems that we see, they didn't start out large.
Like, yeah.
They started small and they grew, right? So
Yes.
what I always like to tell people is, you can start small. Like literally all you need is your basic foundations, your typography, your iconography, your colors. Just have a few colors, then have some semantic colors, primary, accents, neutrals, and then decide on what you're going to use for surfaces, what you're going to use for your background, what you're going to use for all the different typography styles, and then build some components: button, text fields, select fields, you know,
Mm-hmm.
tabs, basically simple components that we see every day. Start from there, and then when you're designing or you're building new features and you realize that you need to have a new component, maybe you need to have a frequently asked questions section and you need an accordion component, you build an accordion component and you add it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the way I like to see it is it's something that is progressive. It doesn't start out
Yeah.
large.
And it
So
doesn't end.
and it doesn't end. So you're just there. You're spending 2 months, 3 months building the biggest, baddest design system because you want to brag to your friends that I built a design system. You give it a cool name, but then you're
The
wasting
thing is
time.
that even as we go along this episode, I would also like share, one of the secrets I use about like reverse engineering design systems. And it's
Mm,
people, a lot of people, they build design systems like products. Like, you're starting and you're going. Some of the best design systems are reverse engineered. So you have the product, you reverse engineer it into a design system.
yes, yeah.
So this is something I've been wanting to do a lot, like even like on my design channel, and but work is a lot, like, and show like the process of reverse engineering some of like this top design system. Hopefully this will force me to do something about that, but like that is one of the ways you can be sure that you're building design systems that are not failing. Oh, I'm already getting ahead of the gun.
I mean, it's fine. It's fine. Let me just ask the next question. So, I mean, the topic of the episode is
Hmm.
why most design systems fail and how to fix it, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the most common mistakes that teams make when building design systems that you've noticed or maybe you've talked about in the past?
Yeah, one of the biggest mistakes is starting with a button. That is one of the surest way to ensure your design system will fail. Yeah, that is, and this is something I learned from one of my mentors in this space, Dan Moore. He's a well-known expert user in this field, right? If you start your design system with a button, there is a 90% chance that design system will fail. So and
Interesting.
that's the most common one. A lot of people think, oh, when they hear design system, oh, let's build the button. Yeah, what you notice is once you start with that button, okay, fine, you've done the button. Then you do the primary button, you do the secondary button, you start with arrow buttons, then you start looking on click, on hover,
Mm-hmm.
focus, accessibility, responsiveness, and you've seen that you've spent 1 month building buttons.
It can get huge.
You get
It
lost in
can
it.
get it can get huge. You're
You get
just
lost in it. Like
yeah.
you now do field buttons, outline buttons.
Ghost buttons,
ghost
tonal
buttons.
buttons, links, everything.
So, and you now get so drawn into it that, like, when you eventually get off of that button loop, you've lost all the motivation to
You're
continue.
burnout.
So
You're burnt out.
that is
already.
one of the biggest reasons that design systems fails for organizations. The second reason, in my case, that I found out from experience is forward engineering. Like I said earlier, right? You're anticipating the components you will need, right? That is one of the sure ways for your design system to fail. Some of the best design systems are built reverse engineering. And how does that work? Let's say, and this is a cheat code, like if you want to be relevant in any organization, right? And you're brought in specifically to help them build a system. When you're doing your audits of their platforms and all, you're looking for patterns, right? So you're looking for patterns that repeat everywhere. You see, oh, they have a sidebar. That sidebar is used on 80 pages out of 90 pages. 100%, you know that sidebar needs to be a component. So, like, you're not even looking at the button now. So that is one of the first components you're building because you want designers to be using it, right?
Yeah.
So that is another reason why design systems fail. People forward engineer as opposed to reverse engineering the design system. The third one that I have is people think a lot of design system designers fail to understand the engineering part or lack a lot of technical knowledge for the engineering side of it. If your design system is not yet translated into some form of a web page, all you have is some really fancy style guide.
Yeah.
If your design system lives just in Figma, like, and I hope I don't offend anyone, these are just my own views from experience. You have a really fancy style guide. Yeah, you have a really fancy style guide. So you need to ensure that you're carrying engineering along and engineering are buying into building that system, because you're trying to create a situation when one designer uses a button on this page and engineering calls a button class in code. It's the same thing as much as possible, right? It's as close as possible, the same aspect. All right. So you need to really work a little bit on your technical knowledge and you don't need to be good at it. You just need to understand and kind of put your mind in that engineering space. And I think the final one, yeah.
To just add to what you just said on the whole technical knowledge, collaborating with engineering as well. I would even go further to say the naming conventions. Ensure that the naming conventions you're using on Figma is the same to like 99% or 98% the same as what is being defined in code. Just to make sure that there is that maximum effectiveness. And that level of collaboration is what builds this technical knowledge. Sometimes you can watch YouTube, you can read articles on how to build that knowledge, but every engineering team is different.
It's different.
So you need to build that cohesiveness with your team to now get to that point where everything is just seamless, because you think Figma is crazy. There are so many ways to style front end, right? There are so many ways, so many frameworks, and inside those frameworks there are so many styling frameworks.
Yes.
So you need to figure out the best language, the best nomenclature that works for the specific libraries that your team is using. And it applies for the mobile guys as well. So I just wanted to add that in there.
100%. That's spot on. And all of this will come, you start noticing some of these naming differences, especially when you guys are either doing reviews or sprints, right? Like, the engineering might call it a drawer and you might call it a model. And you guys are arguing about the same thing, but he's saying like, oh, I can't find this drawer. And you're like, I didn't design any drawer.
Yeah, modal and dialogue. I mean, if it's not specified, maybe the library they are using, it's called dialogue, right?
Yeah.
And then you decide to call it modal, but you don't inform them to make sure that they rename it to modal and wrap the component and name it modal, so that they know They just, so you call it modal, they call it dialogue. I mean, technically, you can say modals are different from dialogues. If you want to go into the technicalities, there are so many naming. I mean, there's toggles and
The
switch. Everybody's right. Everybody's correct. There's
the
toggle, there's switch, there's everything.
the only naming convention that matters is the one you and your engineers agree upon. If you guys decide to call it a light bulb, it is a light bulb. And
It's
when
a light
everyone is
bulb.
saying the light bulb is not working, everyone on the
Everybody
team
knows what everyone
understands.
is talking about. Yeah.
That's the only thing. So, and don't get caught up in a lot of industry standards, because industry standards were made by people also. So, you say, oh, it's
And it
industry
changes.
standard, it's called it changes. It's called
It
a
changes
button. It's
every
called a
year.
button.
It changes every year. The industry standard changes every year. So just decide on the one that works for you and your team and
Yes.
roll with it.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think that the final part that I'll say is underestimating the final part why they fail is underestimating the amount of effort it requires to get the functional design system. And this is a knock on more of, especially, I'll say, technical managers that didn't really play in that space. Right? Oh, what are you doing? Is it not style? It's not just style. So underestimating the amount of time that it takes to get this stuff up and running, and 70% of the time will be spent in collaboration meetings, agreeing upon things, and like the rest 30% is now actually the work. So it might be difficult for you to explain to your manager why these things are taking a lot of time, because how do you now quantify collaboration work? How do you quantify it, all the back and forth and all of those? So to me, those are like the four major reasons why I think design system fails. And I'm sure we'll get to ways to fix it later on. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah. To add to what you just said about underestimating the amount of work, even me, I also had that impression that Shebi, you just build the components now, until I myself got into Figma. Like it's good to plan stuff out. That button that you talked about, right? After planning stuff out, I'm like, oh, nice. I've already written down, okay, these are all the states that I want, these are all the variants that I want, and then let me now build the button component, and I'm there for hours. And I'm just there. Like, sometimes I know there are faster ways to do it. You can create like parent components and then wrap it into other components, but
it takes time. It takes
a lot of time
and clarity.
And not just
information architecture has to be spot on.
It has to be spot, and you have to decide it beforehand. Or you will be there forever. And that's not even the craziest part. Sometimes I find that deciding on things can even take more time.
Yeah.
What is the best color to use for this particular thing? I think this color is better. Oh, I think this color is better.
Yeah.
Then you match the color up with other things in a pattern, and you realize that this color is not actually accessible. You test the accessibility, it doesn't work, and then
because there's a lot of human personal kind of feel, right? Like what looks good to me might not look good to you. So it's a very perspective field and area, right? That's why you need to learn how to like just navigate it and try and eliminate as much as your bias as possible, right? I've worked with like some more junior designers and we're like, engineering is saying like they can't build this, but you're like, this is beautiful, we need to build it. If nobody builds it, it can't be used by anybody, and what you have is just an artwork. So why don't we find a middle ground whereby like what you're building, what you're designing, your team can build it, right? Like you want your UI to look very beautiful and stuff, but if nobody uses it, you just have a poster on your system. That's just what you have. So the perspective also matters. Learning how to let go of some things, just take some L's and allow progress and continuous improvement. Yeah, those are major keys.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Sometimes you have to sort of remove yourself from it. And to be fair, with even with remote work, we are all using different devices. Like I have a monitor, I have a MacBook, somebody else has like an older MacBook, right? The color profiles for all these screens are different. So
Different.
the way I'm seeing things might not be the way the other person on the other end is seeing things. And it's definitely not the way your users are seeing things as
Saying
well.
it.
So there's just a lot of things that are out of, well, just
Control.
out of your control and based on perspective, right? So a lot of, man, if you start getting into like sizing issues, right, like you are designing with a specific size, with a specific dimension, and you think everybody's
Using that.
laptops is using that dimension. No, even laptops that are big, right? Some laptops come predefined and
Yeah.
predefinedly zoomed in.
Yes.
Some laptops are zoomed in by 200%.
Yeah.
So you build something, you pack your dashboard with a lot of stuff, and then somebody opens it on their laptop, which is really zoomed in, and they can't see
They can't
half of
see
what you
anything.
designed.
They
So,
can't see anything.
yes, sometimes you just have to be aware of all this and just take it into consideration. The perspective really helps. It helps to take
Yeah.
yourself out of it and just try to collaborate more. But yeah,
Definitely.
that's amazing. I think it's these are really great points, man, and common mistakes. It's, man, that's starting with a button thing. Like I have been a victim of it.
You know,
I
one
have
thing
been a
I
large
I
victim.
love about this space in particular is that you just continue learning. And
Yeah.
if you meet designers that are, really focused on design system, I feel like you're going to see there is that element of pride doesn't exist, because you're going to be humbled really
They've seen
quickly, right?
things. Yeah.
You're going to be humbled really, really quickly. So like you just need to have that, that learning mentality, trying to adapt, and also making sure that your team is working together, right? It's the topic itself is so broad that, like, to scratch the surface alone is going to take hours, right? That's why, like, don't feel
Yeah.
pressured to thinking you need to know everything to even become a design system designer, right? Like right
Yeah.
now, and this is just even for like people that are looking to get into the field from where they currently are, right from your organization, right? Like start looking at common patterns
Mm-hmm.
and seeing how often they are being used, right? So, and just start do the first one, right? Like I can bet you, like, if you make a pattern that like maybe seven designers in your team use almost every day to design, and instead of them building from the scratch, you can just call that asset once, you're going to get like some of that buy-in to do more,
Yeah.
because like you're going to solve a lot of problems.
100%. So, question: what are, well, let me give some preface to this question.
Okay.
Every good design system requires good documentation.
Mm.
What are some of the pitfalls to avoid when you are creating good documentation for your design system to ensure that people understand this, people can use it, and it makes sense?
That's a really good one, and I think we forgot to add that to some of the reasons why they fail. Documentation, zero or no documentation at all, like zero or no documentation at all. So first, like, we need to define what we are calling a documentation, right? We are trying to help people understand. The goal of documentation is to help people understand what that component is, what it does, and advice on how to use it, right? So once you have that framework in your mind, it helps you draft a more readable and digestible documentation. So let's go to some of the mistakes then before I go to some of the best practices. So some of the mistakes is trying to overly explain and using a lot of filler words. So what I mean is, by, let's say you're documenting a card, you now start with, oh, this is a beautifully made card built with 100% responsiveness
Like,
and
dude,
can
I know
be
what a card is. I know what a card is, bro.
no, and
Just,
like no one's gonna read it, no one's gonna understand it, right?
yeah.
You're, so that's one of the mistakes, not going straight to the point. And the way to fix it, I think it would be better if I say the mistake and how to fix it. The way to fix it would be to try as much as possible to use as much bullet points as possible. Right? You want your documentation to be to the point. Like, this is a button, we use it as a call to action. 3 bullet points, the states, pa pa pa. The states are there. Don't use this. Have an image how you don't use it. Have an image how to use it. If you have some accessibility requirements for engineering, it depends on how you want to do your documentation. Some documentation I've worked with in the past, right? Like they have like documentation tailored to design, and then you have like more of the engineering around like more of the storyboard, the storybook side of
Yeah.
things.
That's interactive.
Some documentations are combined whereby like it's for both design and engineer. So you start having like some code snippets there with all of
Yeah.
those other elements. So be concise, go straight to the point, avoid a lot of filler words, and avoid as much sentence as possible. Take advantage of bullet points. So that's the first one. The second aspect is not having your documentation easily accessible. Right. This might not seem like a mistake, but trust me, like if I'm looking for a documentation on a component and I can't find where to find that documentation in like 10 seconds or less, I'll just detach the component and freestyle.
Yeah.
So
100%. 100%.
so your documentation has to be easily accessible, and how do you do that is part of like letting everyone know where they can find this documentation. Having some, if you're working in Figma, like there's a part in where you can put links to those documentations, and just advocating and ensuring that everyone knows where to find this documentation easily and they can just navigate through it. So that would avoid a lot of errors, right? Designer can just switch in and out. Make sure there are links within those documents that go back to the component, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm reading documentation. If there are similar components there, let me know like these are other components you can use and all of that within it. And I think like the final one, aside for documentation, would be waiting for the documentation to be complete before you share it, right? People want to feel part of a team. People want to build things together, right? So you want to also show that you're human and you can make a mistake, right? Like it's not like you're like a dictionary and you get everything right. So you have to be building documentation progressively, right? When you have a segment done, update it. You're keeping like a versioning. Let people know from the jump what is new. Once I come to documentation, I want to see what's new so that like I don't spend 5 hours reading something. Then I go back to Figma and I see you've changed the component and not right. So that would just be the third one that would help you ensure that your documentation is a success.
Makes sense. So easily accessible, definitely.
Yeah.
And
I just wanted to
honest,
also pitch in like adoption and maintenance side of things.
mm-hmm.
That's why I love the design system world. It's so complex and has a lot of parts that like there's room for everyone.
Yeah.
Adoption and advocating for users to use your design system is a whole other struggle, right? You need to track your analytics. When you see how often is it, if a component is being detached a lot, there's a problem with that component. So like,
Yeah.
why? I don't think designers just love to detach for detaching sake, right? Like if it's not solving my problem, like I'm in the zone, right? I want to move. So that's where like the adoption and maintenance now comes in. Like you need to create an environment whereby you can encourage contributions. If a designer is working on a component and they find a more effective way to make that component better, right? You need to have a process, a contribution process, which is another whole topic on its own. Like how do you update and take intakes for maintaining design? I can't even start talking about that now. Like it is so deep. And like I just love this space so much that if we had no constraints, like I can talk about design system for hours, right? Because it's that intake process. There was one I did in the past. It's like a very complex flow chart, right? Like so that you're not just taking requests from everyone. Someone might like, oh, the close component, the X is green. I want it red. Boom, you've added another variant, red one. Before you know, you're just building, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. So that would be one of the ways for you to go and for adoption and maintenance.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Let's take a quick break and just go through some rapid fire questions. All right. All right. So, what do you prefer, dark mode or light mode?
I know this is rapid fire, but I have to slow down a little, right? And this is because I used to be dark mode a lot. I used to be dark mode everything. And I was saying
Okay.
this to someone recently. Like I recently switched back to light mode, I think like 2 months ago or so. And I was amazed at how beautiful apps are in light mode. If you're listening to this, just try it for 1 week, especially for mobile, and like switch back to light mode. Like right now, like my Notion is light mode, right? Like my linear is light mode. When you go into them, you would see how much like you've been missing out, especially for designers. For engineering, it might not be, but so for me right now, I'm on the light mode wave, like because you're seeing different shades. You're seeing. I think like dark mode sometimes starts looking very similar everything,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
when you
I
switch,
agree.
trust me. So for now, light mode,
I agree. I switched my Notion to light mode a couple of months ago, and
you'll be
man,
wild.
I I was wowed. It's so beautiful, but then I switched it back almost immediately. It's just
My
habits.
God,
It's just
my
it's just
God.
just a habit for me now. Like I've been using it in dark mode for so many years. I don't see myself. I don't know. I think because you've said this, I'll try it again.
Right.
I'll see if it sticks.
Try it.
I'll see if it sticks.
Switch your Netflix to light mode. Switch your Instagram to light mode. Oh my God, you
Never. Wait.
no, you try it.
I can't.
Try
I
it.
can't. I
I bet you like you're going
so
to be like, wow,
so
wow.
so now that you mention it, right? Some things have just become so normal that I totally forgot Instagram had a lights mode.
Yeah, it does.
Netflix.
It does.
Have I ever
It
seen
does.
Netflix lights mode? Probably. I mean, YouTube. I can't remember the last time I saw YouTube lights mode. Maybe
You're going to be wild.
I mistakenly visited YouTube on a friend's laptop, and it was white. I was
Light
like,
mode.
why is your
What's
YouTube
going on?
white? Was yeah, okay. I mean, the Notion, I would try it again because I totally
Right.
relate to what you said. The whole experience, the light mode experience, after a long time switching to it was like, whoa,
It's
it looks completely beautiful. Okay.
you would appreciate the effort those guys put in, like all the design teams, and so you be like, wow.
Okay. Next one. Calling or texting? Which one do you prefer?
Texting.
Same.
Unless I'm driving with a wireless headphones, then yeah. But yeah,
So, are you a morning or a night person?
night. 100% night.
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything in the morning. Like sometimes I don't even have the motivation to do anything throughout work, and the motivation starts like after work, and I'm like working till like 2. So like
Yeah. Same.
night.
Same. I mean, working in the morning is just.
Oh God.
I'm just
a drag.
putting, and then
It's
people
just
are
a
trying to
drag.
call you, and like nah.
My God.
But then my brain really lights up after like 10 p.m.
Yes.
That's when the productivity kicks in.
100%. Same here. Night.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Awesome. Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Okay. Netflix or Prime or Disney Plus?
Disney Plus interface is not the best. It upsets me. I would say generally Netflix. But there's one thing Prime does well that I feel Netflix should adopt, which is that video should not autoplay when my mouse is on it. Like, and even if it autoplays, it shouldn't be audible. It should be on mute. That is a serious accessibility issue Netflix needs to fix. When you're just on Netflix, if you're hovering over any card, it starts playing.
It just
Yes, you can
starts
start playing, But like from accessibility standards, it should be on mute first.
I
So that's
agree.
one thing Amazon does, yeah. But generally with the whole design language, I know Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix. One thing that I prefer that Amazon does, there's very specific feature. When you pause, it shows
You see the
you like
characters.
you see the cast of characters.
I
Sometimes
love
it
that.
might spoil things because the character hasn't come in yet, and then it shows you, and you
Yeah,
only
you
know this
should.
person is not there.
Yes,
Yeah. Aside from that, it's a pretty neat feature, and I think every streaming service needs to have it, especially for animated shows. You want to
yes.
know who is
With the
voicing these
voiceover, yeah,
characters.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Invincible.
sometimes that gets you excited. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. 100%. I love that feature also. Like, I want
yeah,
to know who's on the screen because, like, I'm really terrible
exactly.
with those names. So I want to just kind of have an idea.
Yeah. So you be like, oh, is this guy? I've seen this guy in this other thing,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's go to my last question.
Okay.
So this question is on artificial intelligence.
Mm,
It's been going wild within the past couple of months.
yes.
With AI becoming more and more relevant, and people are starting to incorporate it into their development and design work, how do you think it's going to affect design systems in the future?
Oh my God. First, I have to just like take a deep breath and appreciate AI. Right. Like when I started in design system, like it used to be a lot of guessing. Right, right. It's just like a hit or miss most of the time. But like with what AI has done, it has made design systems more flexible. So first, I'm for it. We just want to see more of it when it gets to the point whereby like, especially for the documentation aspect of things. So right now, AI really shines in helping that documentation, but you need to know how to prompt the AI so it gives you the best results. So that's another, like you need to know what
Yeah,
you're doing for you to ask that help.
yeah,
So I'm so all for AI because it gives you that structure. It helps you focus on the more important thing, which is the people that you're building stuff for and the connections you're making with them. So you're not, if you're in doubt, you're like, okay, how many error states do I need? When do I use a banner? When do I use an inline notification? Like before, you would spend like hours trying to figure that stuff out, right? But
yeah.
like now, in minutes, like you're up and running.
Yeah, I mean, imagine an AI agent that understands your design file and your pages, and depending on what you're designing, it can recommend different components for you. Like
Like
you need an
when
empty
what?
state here. This is the pattern to use. You can use an alert here or a
Yeah,
banner.
I'll I'll take it a step further because when you're getting to that next stage and you want to start using like semantics, tokenizations, you would come to appreciate tokenization in the oh my god, like
Yeah,
it was such a hassle.
we
But
didn't
like
even
right
talk
now,
about we didn't even talk about tokenization. I think that's a very big thing.
it's I don't
But
think that can
it's
be.
like
It's very
it's like a different
technical.
conversation. Yeah, it's extremely technical.
It's very technical. It's not. I think it's more of a workshop kind of situation for you to, because it's very technical. That tokenization, then you go into semantics and all of that. Yeah. So like with AI, like tokenization is a little bit better now. It's more standardized. Like if you
Yeah,
have that structure initially, it helps you like it can create most of the tokens for you anyways, and like it also save your engineering team the stress of
yeah,
creating those tokens a lot of time. Yeah, so
yeah.
100%.
100%. I mean, recently I was trying to start a new front end project, and you have to like copy all the. So for example, colors, right? I have a lot of colors, and what I like to do is I like to have primitive primitive colors, right?
Yeah,
So maybe I have a specific blue that I like, and I have tints and shades from like 25 to like 950. I have all these
yeah,
colors. So I grab my blue, I grab all my green, and I grab all my neutral colors. And from those primitives, I like to create semantic colors from them. So moving everything to my code base. On my Figma, they come as hex codes,
Yes.
right? So I move it to, and then I copy all that. Like I use a Figma plugin to like copy everything because
To
obviously
expand them
I cannot be doing copy
one by
and
one.
paste. It's be crazy. So I move
It's
everything to my
crazy.
code base, and then in my code base, I prefer to use HSL values, right? So
Okay.
how do I now start converting all these X codes to HSL values? But I was using cursor. So I just told the AI agents, all these colors that are here, just change them to HSL for me. And it just
One
did
time.
it
One
in,
time.
in seconds. Something that I would
That
just,
would have taken you like a month.
bro, it would have taken me a very long time to do of just busy work. So I think one very big thing is the busy work is going to reduce a lot.
Yes.
The busy work is going to reduce a lot more, right? And I want to get to the point where rather than just generating things with like the best practices, you can modify things as well.
Yeah.
And the creating button thing that we talked about, it's like, oh, you start creating a button, and by the time you are done, all your motivation is gone.
It's gone.
All these things should be, you know, automated to the point where you can just give it the specifications of everything that you need to do, and it just
Does it.
generates it, right? So
It just.
it's truly exciting for me, to be honest, and I think design systems can really go from months to days, to
Yes.
build, and then they're easy. It's easy for you to experiment with things and then switch things up, so you don't need multiple meetings. I say, oh, we need to
Yeah.
change this, we need to change that, and then you create a timeline and all that.
Imagine you've built design system, now you want to meet, right? You want to do teaming. And without AI now,
Light
that
mode
teaming
too.
you go tell
Theming,
like bro.
theming is crazy. I mean, theming became easier when Figma did the whole variables thing,
Yeah.
because then you can have like a light and dark mode, and then using
Yeah.
semantic colors you can switch them, right? But
Yeah, but you still have to impute the
you still
code.
have to do a lot
To
of
impute
work.
it, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you
I
still have
want,
to impute it.
with the AI, right? Like you can at least just have those codes down. Right now you still copy and paste, but
Yeah.
I'm sure like there will be a plugin out there that can just integrate with Figma that will do that for you
Yeah.
pretty soon.
100%. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think we can close up now. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your journey with us, why you love design systems, and I'm hoping someone that's listening can also share in some of the excitement as well, and then we can build more design systems, put more design systems out there into the world.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have any shameless plugs to plug? Shameless plugs to plug. Oh my god. Yeah.
Not really, but what I'll say is first, like, it's been amazing coming here. My part of my plan this year is to do a lot more content, especially around the design system space. Because I know that, like, especially from where I'm coming from, like, not a lot of people have the time to really nerd out and go into those nitty-gritty. So it's just to demystify the space as much as possible. It's not as scary as people think it is. Part of my goal to do more of is to create a lot more easily accessible content around design systems, sharing some of the best practices and just helping those that are interested get into the space to demystify most of what people think is scary, about it. Like it's a continuous learning process. The faster you start, the faster you get into it. But not just that, also like what I'm doing with the newsletter I write, Modern Design. I'm writing that to also like share stories beyond all of the technical sides of design, to help you navigate most of the communication side of things, just my own personal experiences, to let you know that there's still a life apart from like your job and whatever you're doing in design, and how design can be impactful, right? Yeah, and one of those newsletters I've sent out was like, I told people to switch to light mode, so you can read that.
Okay, of
I was like,
course.
trust me, switch to light mode, because like I was just like on my phone, I was like, oh, I just switched, and I was like, and that's how I write the newsletter. I'm like, no way, I'm letting everyone know this. It's just like my own personal diary. You're free to join the
Nice.
family there. Yeah, everyone's
Yeah.
invited.
So where can people reach out to you if they want to know more, and how can people sign up to your newsletter?
So yeah, first I'll send a link. My newsletter is hosted on Substack. It's slash modern design. Yeah, it's more
Okay.
than design. So you can find me on Substack. One of the most easiest way to also connect with me would be you can connect with me through social media, through my social medias. I have one dedicated for design. It's a small community there. So if that's your thing, you can meet me there at Design with Destiny on Instagram and on YouTube. And if you're more into like the tech and consumer product, you can find me at Tech with Destiny. All right,
All
so
right.
those would be it. Then, if you're really, really like career focus and you want a very, very corporate communication, I'm also on LinkedIn. So
Love it.
if you want to do technical brouhahas and hope this mail finds you well, like I'm also down for that. Like whatever works.
Hope this meal finds you well. Good. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Let me plug my own. So this podcast is powered by Dula Studio. Dula Studio is a strategic partner for rapid growing companies in need of product and engineering guidance. Check us out at www.dula.studio and engage with this podcast on social media. Share your feedback. Tell us who you'd like to hear from in future episodes. Our handle is at Pulse of Tech Pod on all platforms. And if you want to say hi to me personally, you can hit me up at Wolede, WOLEDE, on all social media platforms. Lede Adeni on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for listening to the end. This has been amazing. Destiny, thank you so much for joining.
It's
Let's
been a pleasure.
let's do this again sometime. I'm also excited to talk
I'm
more
always
about
ready to
design
nerd out.
systems. Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Stay
much.
tuned, everybody, and peace. Whew. We've tried.